almost there, guys. I got a few more buttons to click. I will let you. You'll know when you start hearing your song.
Let's start hearing the music.
All right. Facebook, record to the cloud. Good.
Welcome to Psyched by MG. This is Mary Grace Randazzo-Ratliff, or MG for short. I've been a psychotherapist in private practice for 32 years now. Guess what, everyone? We all have issues. So it's time to lighten up and move forward. Let's stop letting our crap control us and take control of our crap. Hello, everyone.
What is going on,
Welcome
people?
back. Welcome back. I was so sad that we couldn't do last week.
I know.
It was,
it was a bummer to miss.
It was a bummer to miss. We hate to miss, but we're
Right.
really, really glad everybody's back with us. I have great news. Psyched by MG's new website is up and running.
Oh, awesome.
So I really would like our listeners to go ahead and check that out. We have some great buttons on there about making appointments and also any comments or recommendations for our podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we are constantly, Dave, we're constantly
we
asking our listeners to give us ideas.
We want to give them what they want.
Yes, we really
reason.
mean that. Yeah, we really mean that within reason.
Within
exactly.
reason.
And also we really need your support. So we are on Spotify and we are on Apple Podcast and Google Podcast and the Detroit Podcast Network, Facebook, YouTube. We really need you to take the time to go ahead and write a comment, click like, subscribe. We could really use our support. We could really use your support, I mean.
Yeah.
And tonight we are going to be doing it a little different. I was telling Dave I don't have a script tonight. We're going to do this kind of.
Mary Grace doesn't have a script. There's something is wrong in the universe.
I always have an outline and I have nothing in my hands tonight and I don't like it.
I told her I had paper for her. She just wanted to pretend.
I was going to fake holding the script today.
Do you want to hang on to something?
But last week we wanted to do this where we kind of took people through, what it was like to do the last two shows on racism and kind of, wrap that up a bit. Not that we're not going to talk about it in the future,
Sure.
but we did two majorly intense shows. And all of us, after we did the show, really had some good discussions about what we all were feeling going into it and decided, geez, we should really, share this with our listeners. And also, Barbara was just telling me about an event that she heard about. And I actually do want to touch on that in the show because it is just enough to shake you to the core. But I think we should start with, what it was like. And I think I'll have, and I told Matt Fox, our producer, that I was going to pull him into the show tonight.
Yes, you did. I'm hanging on to something. Okay. I got something hanging on to.
Because we get really honest. This team, we like being really transparent and we like to just openly discuss, what's stressful or hard or what we've been feeling. I mean, I have some feelings about some of the comments that we got. Really, Dave, pissed me the F off.
I'm sure.
Like I was enraged. It was obvious that these people did not listen to the show.
Right.
And it was obvious that some of it came from some white supremacy.
I'm sure there was a lot of trolling, which happens,
God,
but doesn't mean it's not serious. That's still.
Yeah. And I guess we'll start there. I mean, I was getting some really obnoxious preachings and a lot of ignorance,
Typical.
obviously motivated from white supremacy, neo-Nazi, whatever it was. And I have to say, the greatest joy for me was hitting the delete button. because I wanted, people who were doing that to experience being silenced and being devalued and not important and not heard. I just wanted, and these particular men who wrote to me, if they do listen to the show, which I doubt by your writings, what did it feel like? Because that's what we're talking about, dudes. I mean, come on, get your head out of your ass for a minute here. Really. And it felt effing good to just go, okay, well, delete. You were insignificant. Delete. You were insignificant. And one of them wrote me like 4 times, and I was just like having a blast.
Well, yeah, and that's the great thing that frustrates on no end is not to be acknowledged.
Oh yeah,
they want to stir shit. They want to have a battle, and when you just
delete you, block you.
We don't care. Your words are not worth reading.
You have no value. You are insignificant. I am not going to listen to you. Yep. You are, obviously too anxious of a person. You're too sensitive. You don't get it. You're ignorant. You're dumb, whatever it is. So let's just delete you.
Yeah.
Well, how does that feel? Did you like it?
Can you do that to my student loan debt too?
Yeah.
Sorry.
But truly, I mean, I wanted, to say to these guys, how'd you like it? I bet you didn't.
I think the sad thing though, is that it may or may not have affected them. And I don't, they're probably used to, if that's their MO, they're probably used to being just shut down a lot. Depending on where they're going.
Yeah.
If it's not, if it's not in their support area, with their support demographic, it's.
Yeah. And I had one guy write about me being one of those liberal white people that I was the worst kind of racist. I thought that one was real interesting because
I wonder how how that logic works.
Yeah, me too. And what I thought was so freaking interesting was, dude, you didn't listen to the show. You didn't look at. We have to talk to the white community. Our energy should not be in the black community. It should be in the white community. And that was the whole point of the show, is to really open up the issues of racism in the white culture and to address the white culture. And the greatest support from the show came from the black community. And thank you, by the way, all of you wonderful, wonderful people, all of you for supporting us in the way that you did, and all your likes and listening in. We deeply, deeply, appreciate it. And what I want to say to the white community is, open up your effing ears, for God's sakes. Come on. It's like with all issues, we have to talk about it, and we have to look at it, and we have to see a problem. We have to own it. And if we can get more comfortable in dealing with it and talking about it instead of being afraid, then we've got a chance for change.
Well, and that's what it comes down to. It all leads to that we have to make change.
Yes, we do.
That's the bottom line.
And we have to know there's a problem. We have to own we've talked about the history in the United States. We've tapped on some of the stories that have led to this problem. And if we don't look at that, and we don't look at those cycles, we have no chance to change it. And as in the white community, we owe that to the black community. We owe them that. If not, they shouldn't trust us. Plain and simple. If you aren't going to, it's like when we're doing couples therapy, you got one partner that's in there working their ass off, and the other one keeps saying it's just your fault. And there's a certain point where, that love that was there is resentment, and it's going to destroy that relationship. If you don't own and participate, it's not going to change. And that's effed up. I'm using the effed up instead of the real word
well,
today.
You can use the real word. I know.
But and Barbara, you know what I'm saying. You and I have had these conversations over and over again. So when I look at whoever is in that feed doing these comments, when I first read you again, I had delight in deleting you. because obviously you didn't listen to the freaking show. Okay, can we talk about ignorance for a minute and how dangerous it is? Give me a break. And I want to say to the white community, where the hell are you? Where the hell are you? If you listen to the show, no one is attacking you. We're trying to get to resolution, people. Don't be afraid to listen. It's very, very important. This is not going to change unless you listen. Yeah, motherfucker.
Well, and even I think, even now, I think you've just wasted enough breath on them.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
It's,
those mother frickers.
Yeah.
See, I was back in New York this last week. My mouth is real bad. It's real bad. And I had to go back to New York to help my father, unfortunately, because he got sick. And I was telling Dave that I have a stepmother that's a very interesting person. But I kept slipping up on the language. They're old
Does she not like the language?
Oh, God, no.
Oh,
these are old school Italians. Oh, well, you don't.
You would think they would like that language.
And my daughter and I were upstairs and I kept dropping the F-bomb. I know my daughter's going to be 20 people. Hang on there. Don't judge. And so my mouth, and now that I'm back, it'll be a good. Now my daughter's going to sit in the other room and say, she's not detoxing from swearing. She swears all the time. And it's true.
I don't think she's listening because she had no reaction. I just
how
peeked
does
over.
one detox from cursing?
You don't.
You don't. Is it a swear jar where you start spending a lot of money? Is that how you detox?
Dude, when the kids were little, we had a swear jar.
Yeah.
And we took it to church. We told the kids, okay, now mom and dad are going to put money in the swear jar. And then when we go to church, which was not often, we're going to give it to the priest or the pastor. And so I stuck a note in the swear jar saying, this money is donated to you because my mom and dad swear. And every time they swore, they put a quarter in there. And it was like $20.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Over 2 weeks. Like, it was ridiculous. Yeah, we did that.
Did the priest get with the kids and say, hey, make them swear more?
Well, I was
we
hoping
need more
that
money.
he opened it up.
Ties. We need some ties.
I was hoping that he would laugh and think it was funny, but yeah. So anyway, since I obviously started this off, my experience, Jesus, the first thing that comes is some of these responses that I got and my frustration with people who have these damn opinions that don't educate themselves. And when I talk about educate yourself, this one particular white supremacist neo-Nazi person was obvious because his data, his facts were not. They were not.
Well,
they were very...
Mary Grace, you're cracking me up.
I do better without a script, I think.
Okay, here's the thing. I've been doing this work for years.
Yeah.
Okay. And I see that you got shook up.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. You cannot ever get used to the ugliness of troll comments. I mean, it's ugly. And if you're a sensitive person, which you are, it really can stay with you. But I have learned over the years, because I have been called all sorts of things, believe you me, all kinds of names and I've been told, just recently, I was told by a guy that, you know what? You should be so lucky if slavery were to come back, because given your skin tone, you'd probably be one of the house niggers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I want to tell you this, to tell you that in this line of work, you got to realize that we are working against a group of people who have already made up their minds.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That this is how they see things. That Black and brown people are not human, that the chief demon in the White House right now is the real deal, and he's here to save white people from annihilation, and that no matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter what conversations
not
we have
changing.
here. They have already made up their minds. So they're not
Mhm.
on a mission to understand. They're on a mission to frustrate you. They're on a mission to oppose you. They're on a mission to make you feel as small as possible. They use the worst language on this planet. They are so the level of stupidity and ignorance in that population of people, for me, I was like, I now understand how they could have voted this creep into power. I see very clearly, and he knows his base. This is the thing that people are also not being cognizant of, especially right now. He knows his base. That's why he will retweet a supremacist, a white supremacist going white power.
Yep.
That was with intention. That's why his first rally is going to happen where Black people were massacred. That's why now his rally is going to be an affront to the natives of this land, not this rally, this celebration of independence. Can I just tell you a little bit about this place, because it is so fascinating. First and foremost, that whole area was carved by a KKK member called Gustenberg Lump, right? Not only that, the Black Hills are the heart of everything for Native Americans. That whole area is sacred ground, right? Then the second thing about it is that, look at the presidents they chose to carve up there. There was Theodore Roosevelt, who said, the only good native that there is a dead native. That's one. Then you have George Washington, whose mouth was full of slave teeth for dentures. Then you have Abe Lincoln, who killed 40 Native Americans for worshiping in their traditional cultural way. Then you had Thomas Jefferson, who was raping child slaves. So do you see what an affront? This guy moves with purpose, and he may be really stupid in some areas, but when it comes to marketing to his base, he knows exactly how to do it.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
And
that's
so,
why I enjoy deleting every stinking.
Yeah, and so all these people, like, I'll tell you, for example, right now, if I tell you that my TikTok is swamped with trolls, but what I have this saying, and I say this especially to the young people I mentor: starve the troll, do not feed the troll. That's how I put it. So what you do is, the one thing they cannot stand is not knowing whether you've seen their comment because you haven't responded, or knowing that you've seen it and you've deleted it and therefore you've made them insignificant and irrelevant.
Yes.
Let me tell you, they hate that. And so my biggest thing is, I see something, sometimes I don't even read the whole thing, because I'm like, why am I going to imbibe this toxin into my energy space? I start reading, I see, and I delete. And even my followers who engage them, I will often go there and I'll say, don't. This is exactly what they want you to do. It's a distraction. We've got work to do. We've got things that we need to be taken care of. They are very, very destructive that way. Like, we've spent a good part of, I don't know how long, talking about them. Yeah. And yet what we really want to do is debrief on what these conversations have done for us, what they've meant for us, and what we're hoping that these conversations are doing for our community, which is the community of people who are willing to learn. Yes. That's the community. That's our work. Those are our people. The trolls are not our people.
Right. No, oh God, no. Oh God, no. And again, this is just my experience as I've, gone on this journey that, I'm Italian 100%. And I've been a psychotherapist for 32 years. And that passion in me, when I see this crap, I'm always going to look at it as crap, and have a reaction of that, as well as delete, and not hook with them. Because you're absolutely right, Barbara. You cannot connect. It's a level of one-sidedness and ignorance and narcissism and self-righteousness that you're not going to change in these people. You really aren't.
No, you're not.
It's ridiculous.
No,
it's ridiculous. So there's something I want to, we all talked the last time, and I was curious, you guys did, and Jamie he's not here tonight. But I really wanted him to be on it because he really helped us to go into a conversation where you guys were talking about Dave and Matt and Jamie being white men in this society. What was it like for you as we talked about this subject matter? Matt?
There was a bit of uncomfortableness in it. You know, for me, you know, I want to talk about it, but I had the more you talk, the more comfortable you get, I think. So when we started talking, it felt a little uncomfortable, but as the weeks have gone on, I am and getting my opinion out there, making sure that we are supporting everybody, you know, and just pay attention to what's going on. So that makes you more comfortable.
Yes. Dave, what was it?
You know, it's when we mentioned earlier that we were going to kind of debrief on this a little bit. And I'll just be open and honest because I want to be real with this. Talking about this brought up memories for me.
Did it?
And one of I can remember distinctly as probably a 6, 7, 8-year-old somewhere in that area, being at my grandfather, it was my step grandfather, but being my grandmother and grandmother. And this is how vividly this stuck in my head. It was a Big Boy commercial. And it was a couple sitting at a table who they lean across and they kiss each other with pie on the table. They happened to be African-American couple. And I distinctly remember my grandpa just in disgust saying, goddamn N-words. I mean, I remember this from being like 7 years old.
Wow.
And it even at the time, I knew it wasn't right, but it was like, I couldn't understand it. I was struggling with that at that age. Like, wow, what is going on?
There would be that kind of hate.
Just the visceral reaction. And it made me think of that. And it just brought that back. Like it was just happening. Like that same feeling of just, I don't know, confusion. On why? What, I know. Why would that happen?
I know it. I lost a friend, a person that I went to college with. And she came from money out in the East, grew up with a very, protected life and wanted for nothing. And she asked me to be in her wedding. And we were sitting there, we were going from place to place. I'd flown in for her wedding and we were going from place to place. And this man was just walking across the street. The light was red. All he was doing was innocently walking across the street. And she said, that goddamn. And I just looked at her. I go, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. I was shocked. Here's this educated person. And like I read on Twitter today, there's a difference between being, intellectual, knowledgeable, and educated. Do you know I never spoke to her again?
Good on you.
I gave up and she had no idea why. I just thought, you little motherfucking princess. And I didn't grow up wealthy. I grew up in poverty. I struggled. I had to build everything I got. And when I saw that judgment in her, I was so sick and so pissed off. I just told her, I can't believe you just said that. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? And she's like, what are you talking about? You know that they're less. And I went,
wow.
Oh, wow.
Whoa. And I stood in that wedding and then we never spoke again. That was it. I saw this side of her that made me so, because see, when you grow up in the kind of poverty that I grew up with, and I had to, buy groceries with food stamps, and you're constantly aware of the judgment, and you always feel less, and that you're never enough.
Right.
Everybody's got more than you. You don't have the same clothes. Just this thing. And so I throughout my whole childhood, I worried about fear or judgment, that people were going to judge me. And they did. There are people that did judge me.
That happens. Yes.
And so I think that made me more of a sensitive person on judgment. And when that person, who I cannot call my friend, did that, I was just shocked. And I got one more story if I can share it, because I debated on whether I was going to tell this story. After I graduated from University of Michigan, I was single at the time, and I met this wonderful Nigerian man. He spoke 5 languages, well-educated, just a delightful man. And we dated. We decided to date. It was my first interracial relationship. And I had always loved African music, African dance, African drumming, salsa, soca, calypso, reggae. Remember all the festivals,
the concert at State Theater.
Yes,
was it a reggae concert?
Yes, it was a reggae concert.
Yes.
I just felt that music was just a very spiritually driven music that was like going to church for me personally.
I had a blast there. I loved it.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but inside it made me feel like church. And so I had gone home. I dated this man for maybe a total of 4 or 5 weeks because he ended up having to leave the country and do some business. And so I go home and I'm playing my music in the car. And I come back to Michigan. My brother hears me playing the music. And I get back in the car and I come back to Michigan. And I'm about to have my first date with this guy. And my father calls me, and I think this is really weird. Like, I'm in Michigan, he's in New York. And he says to me, Mary Grace, are you dating a black man? And I'm thinking, how the fetch does that? How the hell could he know that? There's no way he can know that. I'm in Michigan, for God's sakes. He's in New York. And I said to him, well, yeah, I have a date tonight. And he said to me, if you marry this man, I will not come to your wedding.
Oh my gosh.
And I said to my own father, I said, are you freaking kidding me? I said, Dad, I have put up with the crap that I put up with your spouse, who I love her, by the way, but she can be hard. And you're going to judge me? And we didn't speak. I hung up and I said, well, then I guess we don't have a relationship. And we didn't speak for a long time. And he's like, you can't take my daughter from me. And I said, yes, I can. I'm an adult. Watch. Sure. I just couldn't believe it. I don't know. My question to myself now is, why was I so surprised? Because I truly was surprised when it happened. But again, the judgment thing, like, where the fuck is this coming from? Seriously, where is this coming from? That my own father, me who had to be this dutiful daughter to all the shit that went on in my childhood, and I stuck with family members, that was like the line. That was it for me. Yeah. And I pulled out of the relationship, and I was going to share that last time when Barbara was sharing about these poor kids who were getting rejected from their families.
Right.
I remember how that felt. It's very, very difficult.
Much less severe, but it made me think. It's making me think of these, and these are the feelings that are coming up with all of this going on, because I had that one with my grandpa. I vividly remember that. It still like shocks me even now as an adult. There was one other, again, this sticks in my mind as well. And my mom was taking me to get clothes, and not to go into big detail, but I probably grew up very similar to you. My mom was single. My parents were divorced. She had a job as a waitress. So she took me to get a set of dress clothes to go to church in for an event. And I said, well, I want this. And I couldn't even tell you what it was, but I believe it was I think like a red shirt, and I wanted this thing. And she stood there and she goes, no. And I'm like, well, why? She goes, those black people wear those colors.
Oh my gosh.
Like something I just wanted to get to make me feel good and be, and I just could not, again, it's just, even now, I just have this feeling of just confusion and hurt. And
shame by association too, because you're talking about being an innocent child and being, molded and affected by energetically something that's hate.
Yeah.
And something that devalues people. And when that child feels that and experiences it, it's upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad. It's really sad because children naturally and innately are not racist and judgmental.
Well, and I think that's one of the points I want to drive home. Even with that, I just knew even at that age that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm glad for that. I'm glad that was the result of it.
Yeah.
But those feelings still come out. Like I again, just I don't know. I guess just being connected to people who would think that way makes me feel bad.
Oh yeah, that guilt by association.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really big issue to really explore. Because I know I've experienced that where you want to crawl under a rock and you feel awful. You feel like it's somehow your fault that this bad stuff is happening. When I was telling that story, how my brother said to my father, I think she's dating a black man because she's listening to that black music.
It's just so I don't know what the word is. It's just so ignorant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
really
music.
sad. It's really, really sad. And now what's interesting is my father has evolved and changed through the years. We did reunite. We were estranged for, 8 years. And we reunited with the rule that we were going to talk about issues. We weren't going to cover things up. And if he really made me mad and hurt me, no matter what it was, I was going to tell him. And I started to do that. I started to get really honest with my dad and say, you hurt me when you did this. You hurt me when you said that. You made me mad when you did this, or whatever it was. And so we started to talk. And now, I was just with him because he was sick. And we were talking. I shared with everyone that my son just came out, a couple months ago now. And I had the conversation with my dad. I said, Dad, how do you feel about this? And he was like, you know what? I think it's great. I just want him to be with someone that makes him happy. And I thought, yeah, but where are you with racism? Like, where are you with that?
Do you think that he evolved over the years?
I do, because what shocked me is my husband's side of the family, my nieces are interracial children. And my father ended up talking about what was going on with Black Lives Matter. And I was shocked because he was supporting it. And he's a Democrat and he doesn't like what's happening and he doesn't like the Trump administration. And so we were talking about it, and we were talking about family members that are racist. And he said, I don't agree with that. And I said, yeah. I said, especially I have family there's intergenerational children. These are beautiful, lovely. I don't even like to call them interracial children because they're just these amazing women.
They're just children.
And my father's response was, yes, of course, they're wonderful. And there was a part of me that I thought, should I say, gosh, Dad, what changed you? What changed you? Because when you were worried that I was in that relationship, your view, back in the early 90s was very different than it is now.
I mean, it was almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But it really interests me to I wonder what his answer would be. I really do.
He saw, and I don't know if there's a part of me that says, gosh, we've evolved so much together. He really learned about me and what hurt and the pain and the anger, because I was such a good Italian little girl, and I never got upset, and I was dutiful, and I was, I knew how to do all the right things. And then when I changed and really became forward and assertive, he changed with me. So I don't know if that was a part of that process with him or not. I really don't know. But he's evolving. It was great to see because he's 83 years old now. And we're having this conversation just, a few days ago, which is amazing to me. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many experiences that I could talk about. In fact, Dave, one of them, I remember there was a young man, his name was Jerry. He played football with my brother, African-American man, amazing athlete. And my brother hung out with him. But I remember Jerry telling us one time about what some of the things that the other kids were saying to him in the locker room.
Oh boy.
And I knew, kids see kids. Kids don't see the racism until they learn it. And so that was I think probably my first experience where I looked at someone and I didn't understand what he was telling me. Why are they picking on you?
Right.
What is going on? Why is that happening to you? I don't understand. I remember saying that to him. What do you mean they're picking on you? You're a great athlete, good looking kid, like well, likable. Why would they be picking on you? And I remember him looking at me saying, it's because I'm Black. And I remember my first thought was, you're not Black, you're brown.
Right.
That was my innocent kid response. What are you talking about? You're not Black, you're brown. And, but I didn't know what to do. And I remember being paralyzed in that moment because that guilt by association, because my heart, and then I wanted to hug him and say, not everybody believes that. Don't think it's everyone. It needs to change.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're sharing these stories because I want to speak to the white community. I want you to think about those stories you have inside that is a part of our racism. That is a part of our culture that taught us to be racist.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we say, look, we have to own, we all have this inside because of this culture, whether you're talking, Barbara, about history and what we learned in school and who these people are and our experiences as kids, I'm going to give you guys a task this is to the white community. Sit down. And if you've got kids, especially, share these stories and really deal with what it made you feel. And you've got that shame by association. You want to talk about that. And you want to talk about how scared you were to stand up and go, what? I don't get this. And as kids, you're afraid to argue with your parents.
Oh, of course.
Because you're dependent. But share those stories because that's a nice exercise to really begin to model change and to be vulnerable and to be open and say, wow. And if you had a racist thought, talk about it. Don't be afraid to say, you know what? I began to think that way. Okay, challenge that then.
Sure.
If you don't own that it's a problem, you can't have the power to change it. Don't let shame bind you and paralyze you to the point where you don't move through the racism that we have.
And it's funny, Mary Grace, just to interject there. And that was why, for me, these conversations were critical. And if you remember when I said that, it's literally holding space for everybody to share their truth.
Yep.
Without shame,
without shame,
guilt, without judgment. And the reason I said that is because there are a lot of things that I could say that could make people so uncomfortable because of that guilt by association.
Yes.
So you're not racist, Dave over there is not racist, whatever. But I could tell you some heinous stories that would make you cringe because you're in a white skin. And that's why I've always said, it's important when holding space and having these conversations to listen with your heart. Because the last thing I need you to do, Mary Grace, when I share my story, or you, Dave, is to start that guilt by association and the shame.
That's exactly.
Because then it immediately spins the story round and it becomes about you.
Yes.
not about me. And that's what kills these very difficult conversations from ever going to full completion.
Yeah, that's right.
And for us to get a breakthrough.
Yes.
You just got to sit in that moment and hear the stories. And part of why we have the crazy trolling is because these are people who are going, la, 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 can't hear you. La, 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 la. Yeah, that's literally, in my, that's what they're doing. They've chosen not to hear you, so they just drowning you out. And the way they do that best is by attack. But I want to appeal also to our allies, the people who are interested in doing this work, the people who want to see things change, the people who have implicit biases because they're there, whether it be through upbringing, through whatever, that the key to this is not to get guilty or to feel shame, but it is literally to see it for what it is.
Yes.
Own that it's there, and then start to challenge it every single time that it happens.
Yep. They have to, the white society has to magnify its thoughts. They really do. They have to magnify their thoughts. Barbara, we talked about in one of the shows, so say your kids are outside playing and there's an African-American teenager with a hoodie on walking down the street. How much are you honed into that person? How much are you aware? How much attention do you pay to that kid versus a Caucasian kid who's walking down the street in the same way? That we have to magnify these thoughts that we get and really face them. And we have to talk about them and we have to deal with them, because this is a part of racism. I talk about a lot with problems that you have. There's mild, medium, moderate. Begin to understand. You might see yourself mild, you might see yourself moderate, or you might see yourself as extreme. But either way, begin to identify the thoughts. They're sweeping for some people. They're real quiet. Create that space to be able to look at it without shame and guilt, and understand the history in this country that feeds it, so that you can get comfortable and go, wow, where did that come from? What is my story with this? What are my experiences with this if we want to change it? It's so important to do that. That's how we can change in white society.
And I think a big part of this too, Mary Grace, I'm seeing it especially with what's going on, where it literally feels, and even for me as a Black person in this country, it literally feels like everything that we have held true for so long is suddenly being upended. It literally feels like there's some cosmic hands that have got a rug with both hands and shaking everything up. The monuments are coming down. We look historically now, the history children were taught in school was whitewashed. We've known this, but never has there been a time such as now where people are like, now let's get to the real truth of who these people were.
Yep.
And I think again, as an empath, I know what it does for me to read about people we learned in school about as heroes, Christopher Columbus, George Washington, blah, blah. And to then hear the dark side of it all. And then to say, so how are these people heroes? I can imagine the existential crisis that is happening in the fabric of whiteness right now, because everything they held with pride and value, guess what? It's Independence Day tomorrow. Yeah. And there's so many kids who are like, what's there to celebrate about this country that was built on blood and bones? And it took this chief demon to literally spotlight what is the foundation of this country, because that's the reality. And what we need to do is get real about the reality. We can't whitewash it anymore. It's all out there now. Kids Google this stuff and they read. The minute they hear that in history there was a hero called so-and-so, there's a monument to this guy, they go and Google to find out, okay, what's the backstory? What's the real story? Mm-hmm. And so everything is being upended. We are in such a time of turmoil and upheaval. And this is where, again, the ugliness comes out. So you talked about your dad as being, 80 years old, and he seems to have really evolved. I can tell you stories, millions of stories of video clips of 80-year-olds running up to little 7-year-olds with Black Lives Matter signs and snatching them out of their hands. Like, till the parents are like, are you kidding me? What are you doing? Right down the street in Ohio, we had a situation where an elderly white man started attacking a little white girl because she was chanting Black Lives Matter, and she was drawing on the sidewalk with chalk, Black Lives Matter. Guy went for her. He's in his 80s. There's going to be a whole lot of turmoil. And in that turmoil, the ugly is going to come up. The really ugly and the hideous is going to come up, right? Right now, since the last time we spoke, we're up to 15 so-called suicides. Okay? And I've since found...
Let me interject just for a second so that I want to speak to this real quick, that we wanted to share more of our stories. And there's a reason why I want to say this, because as Dave shares his story and I shared my story and Matt talked a little bit, we in no way want to minimize what's going on in the outside world. We do not want to do that. And I just wanted to clarify that because I think it's really important. So you as a listener, if you're listening in, part of today's show was about our experience as we were dealing with the last two shows. And I want to just make sure you know that as we're doing that, we don't want to minimize what is happening out in that world. And so, Barbara, I just wanted to interject that real quick.
And I want to piggyback right onto that, because remember when we did the first show, what was it I said? I said, for me right now, forget politics, forget big institutions. I'm about the grassroots. Yep. Now, what do we do at the grassroots level is we share stories.
That's right.
And so what you are doing right now is exactly in keeping and aligned with how I and several other people who are doing this work know the breakthroughs are going to come. When people hear you talk about your father who was once racist and they identify, Mary Grace. When you talk about your granddad, Dick, people identify with that. And this is what we're looking for, because what tends to happen is somebody like me comes along and, people are about to celebrate independence. And I'm saying, there's no independence because guess what? This one you're celebrating did this. It makes people start to go inward, and that shame and that guilt by association and that feeling of overwhelm, like, this whole thing is rotten. Where do we even start? But when you guys, as white people, are sharing those stories and anecdotes, again, in a safe space where there's no shame, and you can talk about the shame that you felt even as a kid, and even now when you say, I feel some type of way, I can't identify it, it really helps the listeners who earnestly want to do this work to be able to go, whew. So it's not some put together white people who've got their act together these are people who have this in their families too, and they're also navigating this hard way.
That's Barbara, you just hit the nail right on the head. Like, in the white community, it's in our families, it's there. We are doing harm if we don't start from that place. If we continue the denial, and we've said this so many times, it won't move forward. It's there. It's there. Stop personalizing it. Don't be afraid of it. And talk about it. Get to the roots. And if we can all do that, we will change. We will change. When you face those fears and you get uncomfortable, I mean, I just want you to think about it. We're talking about racism here.
Mm-hmm.
How uncomfortable is it for Black Americans to drive their car, to walk down the street, to enter a restaurant, to talk in a business meeting?
Mm-hmm.
People are hyper aware of their skin color. This discomfort that we're talking about is nothing compared to that. To be afraid for your adolescent son to drive. I mean, you're afraid to begin with when they get, into these cars, but to have a Black child take to the streets in their car, guess what? White America, it's really true. It's different. It's different. These parents are terrified, and they're having to teach their child how to do it in the right way, to handle it if they get pulled over so they don't get hurt. Parents, please think about that for a minute. Step into the other person's shoes and be aware of how excruciatingly painful that would be if you had to go through that. And this is every day. Every day. Plymouth High School, they what is it called? They allowed kids from different schools to
school of choice.
School of choice.
Yeah,
when they allowed school of choice. There were kids that take this limo service to Plymouth High School.
Okay.
And I would get into the pickup line. And I sat there and I thought, oh my God, how hyper aware is everybody right now of each of these African-American children getting into these cars? And thinking, oh, this is a school of choice. I bet they're from Detroit. Instead of, oh, what a beautiful child coming out of the school today.
Right.
What an amazing kid. I wonder what they like. Oh, that person looks like an athlete. But instead, you sit there and you notice the hair, that it's different. And you have these thoughts. And this is what I'm challenging the white society on. I want you to challenge that in yourself. Don't be afraid. It's there. You're thinking it. I want to challenge you to sit with that and say, wow, how come when those kids come out of that school, either you're not noticing them or you're wondering about how amazing they are.
And it's great that you say this, Mary Grace, in the way that you say it, because I think part of what needs to be understood too is that when we share the history and we talk about the history as it is, like getting real with the reality, instead of the whitewashed nonsense they're teaching kids in school, I think it can give an insight into white people about how deep and how far and how long this has gone on, so that as they are facing their own personal demons with this, they realize that it's been in the very air they breathed. It's been in the air they breathe from. And on the Black side, we have our own traumas we've inherited from the past as a result of this, believe you me. But just addressing the white community, this stuff has been going on for 5 centuries. And it's been passed on generation to generation to generation to generation to generation, to the point where, as a scientist, I can tell you about PTSD and how PTSD can actually change the genetics of somebody. I've often wondered whether, and this may sound far-fetched, but I'm a scientist, so I like to think critically and say, well, if PTSD, trauma to the body, can be passed down generation to generation if it's not dealt with, can racism be passed down generation to generation if it's not dealt with? Because sometimes I look at the entrenchment of the racist beliefs that are in some people. They are so deeply entrenched. It's like it's almost like they are the fabric of that person. They are the scaffolding to this person. And those are the people I say, I just am like, I don't know whether those kind of people can be helped. But the reason I say this is not to say that racism is genetic. Please don't go and misquote me. But I'm just trying to emphasize how Repetition, generation after generation after generation. Remember, guys, we're talking about people who used to have picnics while somebody is burning over there and then take souvenirs home. Think about where this has come from, and it's been passed on.
Yeah.
And I think the current generation of young people is saying, we don't want to inherit that anymore. We don't want it. We don't. They've tried to call out their parents. Some of their parents are affronted by it because it induces so much fear. Because, again, like I said, if it feels like it's the very scaffolding of who you are, it's like somebody coming to shake your scaffolding. It's frightful. But the kids are saying no more. We don't want to inherit that.
Yeah.
We want to chart a different kind of path.
Yeah.
And it's easier for the young because most of them, I see my children's friends. These children are so woke. These children call each other out. Like, okay, that's your privilege talking right there, white girl. They talk to each other like this. And I sit there mesmerized. Yeah. My daughter didn't have to say anything. They're doing it amongst themselves, checking each other, correcting each other.
Yeah.
And I am in awe.
Yeah.
And then there's us, the fossils, who are like, we want to stay the way we are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Call it an age thing. Call it whatever.
I think you hit such an important issue. And Dave, in our field, we deal with intergenerational patterns a lot. And we have this saying that a couple of things, if you forget the past, you're bound to repeat it.
Of course.
I use that. It's old school. But if there are issues that are not mastered, you will pass them down from generation to generation. This is all kinds of issues. If you have the alcoholic father, and you don't deal with the issues of being brought up by an alcoholic, your chances of marrying an alcoholic are very high. Depression, anxiety. I got a whole family, with anxiety, PTSD. If you don't look at the problem and you don't become aware of its impact and the behaviors that join that problem or issue, you will pass it down from generation to generation to generation. And you and I see it every week in our office where we're sitting, whether it's a parent who starts hitting their kid and they said, oh, I said I was never going to do it. How is this happening?
Right.
Or the parent, says, oh my God, how did I end up marrying an alcoholic? My father, my grandfather. To talk about intergenerational patterns of racism, I think is so absolutely important to understand and to give the listener the vocabulary like this. We're talking about themes that are destructive themes that people get hurt because of these very, very old belief systems that are so automatic, you're not aware of it. And the only way you're going to change is you have to get it into your awareness. It's absolutely essential. That's why I keep saying, please pay attention to your thoughts. Please watch what you do because you've got to get it. It's so suppressed and so way down in there and such an automatic pilot that you're not going to know. And so if you start by bringing that consciousness in there, you will then have the power to change it. And we, as you know, Dave, we talk about this with all kinds of issues. It's so essential.
That's at the in therapy. That's at the basis of any issue.
It is.
You have to change your thinking. The behavior is not going to change until you change your thinking.
Yes, and become aware that it is a problem.
Or you want to change. Right?
Matt, I am very impressed right now.
Thank you.
Yes, it does start with when you first start, you have to want to change. You have to say, I don't like this and I don't want to continue to do it.
Yeah.
I don't. And that's, I have this thing, you're just probably stuck, not crazy. And most people, if you can get comfortable with those intergenerational patterns, with those stuck points, with those behaviors that you don't like, if you can get comfortable and kind of fall in love with the fact that you do it and allow yourself to look at it and be aware of it, you're going to change it.
And I'm just thinking as you're talking, and this is the one thing that I think we can, I hope we can all agree on, that if you change your thinking, if you address the things, that you're going to be happier.
Yeah. Oh, that's
you're
yes.
just and
That's
again,
side
I don't
effect.
want to go back and give the trolls that we were talking about in the beginning attention. I guarantee they're not happy people.
Yeah.
I can guarantee it. There's too much hate for them to be happy.
Right.
So let them
Yeah.
be a
God
hateful
bless you.
person and be miserable, but we're going to choose to be happy and make things better.
That's right. That's right. Karma's a bitch, though. Just had to say it. Sorry.
Mhm.
That's that is so typical.
You know, I have to tell a story about Barbara and I. Did I tell it already, actually? Where Barbara, remember, we were writing again on one of these writing weekends real quick. And Barbara, she is such a great speaker. Like, she speaks in prose. Like, she's just so articulate.
Oh my God, I know what you're going to say.
You know what story I'm going to talk about? We're sitting there and I was just mesmerized by Barbara, and I was listening to her, and I, kept saying, I'm not a writer, Barbara. Oh my God, I could never write like you. And I was listening to her and I said, oh my God, I could totally see us like on a stage somewhere talking about these issues with all the passion, and you saying like something so profound, and me looking at the audience going, damn, that's some good shit she just said, isn't it? Shit. Damn, girl, that was said well. Yeah. Just laughed and laughed. She, I'm a little rougher around the edges. And
I love you as you are. I love rough around the edges.
So, but anyway, so the darn time again, got away with us.
Well, it always does. Time
always
is fleeting,
does.
and
but I do, we might do this next week because I do want our listeners to get to know us. And I might want to follow through with some stories about, us that would help them to continue to get to know us.
Are any stories allowed?
Any stories? Well,
okay.
I don't know, Dave.
I don't know. We have some stories.
Oh God, do we have stories? Dave and I have a story, but we're not going to tell that one.
No,
so
that's that was our friend had a great. Never mind.
Yeah.
We'll get into it.
We knew each other a long time ago, Barbara. Yeah. So we may continue this in next podcast with another theme.
Oh no,
Barbara's going to come back. She's I've invited Dave. I haven't been able to talk to you. I've invited her to join our show.
Oh no, that's fantastic.
So Barbara's going to be here. She's just amazing. But I want to give a shout out. Dave, you can find Dave
MotorCityHypnotist.com.
And he's got his podcast running
my podcast
now.
should be hitting the channels anytime now.
That's right, because you made it to your numbers, right? Okay,
right.
Good. Mm-hmm. And we've got Matt Fox, and we've got Barbara Mangami, and she is our new co-host on the show, and myself. You can find all of us at DetroitPodcast.com or Detroit Podcast Detroit Network.
Your Facebook page is amazing. Your new website is up now too.
Yes, my new website. Oh, everybody, please go in there and comment. And there's so many ways you can hear from us. So thank you for listening so much. We appreciate you. And we'll talk to you next time.
See you guys soon.
Take care.
Bye, guys. Thank you.